Hello, everyone. I'm Garrett Reisman.
And I'm Mike Massimino. And together we are two funny astronauts.
Or so we hope.
And remember, we're not claiming to be funny people. We're claiming to be funny astronauts. So hold us against that standard.
Right. It's a low bar. It's a
Low bar.
All right. And today we're going to be talking more advanced survival. We're going to be talking about Cold Lake, Canada. Cold Lake, Canada. Remember that place, Mass?
You know, Garrett, when I first heard about Cold Lake, Canada, and they told me I was going there, I was really hoping that it was like a misnomer, that they named it like we lived in Clear Lake City, Clear Lake, Texas.
Yeah.
That lake was anything but clear.
You know what my wife,
very muddy place. And I was hoping, geez, maybe they did the same thing. But no, they named that place exactly the way it was. It was cold. It was a lake. It was cold.
You know what my wife called Clear Lake, what she called that place in Houston? She called it Lake Opaque.
You could not see in that. Yeah, there you go. So,
but it turns out the Cold Lake is
Cold Lake was cold. It was very cold. I was hoping that it might be the same thing from Clear Lake, but no, it was cold. They named it correctly.
Super cold. And we're up there with these badass Canadian Army dudes. But you know what? Even though they were really badass Canadian Army guys, they were still very polite because after all, they're still Canadian.
Yeah. For badasses, they were, but they were an impressive group of guys. I thought. Very, very impressive mustache. We had this guy, Colin Norris. Norris was our leader. Did you have that guy?
I think it's the same guy. I remember
Sergeant
the
Norris. Sergeant Norris.
Yeah.
He was great. Yeah, I'll never forget
took his
that
job
guy.
very seriously. Yeah,
he did, but he was great. He was
good.
But we should talk a little bit about why we were doing it. It wasn't just haphazard stuff. There was some reason to doing this, and it really. Now this is a little bit different, I would say, Garrett. It's not survival training because they gave us food, right? I think the difference between survival training and this stuff was survival training. Go out and find your own food. Good luck. This is how you catch a bunny or whatever, or snake.
Not just food. They gave us sleeping bags and tents. There's way more than I had in Russia. And they gave us like stoves that we can light up stoves and a heater.
Yeah.
So we had we had equipment to try to keep alive. It was much more civilized, really.
We didn't have it, but we had to deal with a lot of other hardships, and we were because they were doing it on purpose, I think, to us, because the idea, I think they were trying to expedite the stress and crankiness that would come, because in space it might take. We were talking about this on another episode. It might take a while for people to get cranky. Like you're up there for a few months. It might not happen right away. In a short amount of time, anybody can be happy, for a week or so. But after that, you might start getting a little cranky. They were trying to speed that up by having us be cold and not letting us get very much sleep. We had to wake up in the middle of the night and go on these errands and take measurements and move camp. So we were not getting very much sleep when we were up there, and we were cold, and it was just somewhat at times not very comfortable. And that would sort of accelerate the crankiness that they were looking for.
And we realized that now that we're doing these long duration missions on the space station, not that being on the space station was as cool as going to Hubble or anything, but if you're going to do this long duration thing on the space station, that you needed to be able to play nice with others, right? That was the thing. And so we figured, okay, we should train for this. And that was why we started doing these things like Cold Lake, and we'll talk some other time about Knowles. We did these things that learn how to play nice with others, just like you were taught in kindergarten, but it's important.
Yeah.
So,
and I think we're looking out for each other too. I think sometimes I didn't do this with my crewmates. I did the Knowles with my crewmates, but I think we're trying to recognize things in your fellow crewmates for the exercise anyway. What was making them irritable, if they needed sleep, if they needed food, if they were dehydrated. And then you were trying to recognize those things in yourself too, like when you weren't feeling well, because you want to exhibit good expedition behavior was the idea here. You want to be a good expedition crew member.
Exactly. And we didn't really focus on that during the shuttle program, because when you're up on a shuttle flight, like you said, for a couple of weeks, you can get along with almost anybody. And people think that all astronauts are like super nice. And I got to say, the vast majority are. I had a lot of really good experiences, but not all of them.
At least the two funny astronauts.
Oh yeah, we're nice. But but there were some jerks. All right, we messed up. We picked some jerks, and you want to name any names, Mass? You got anybody you want
I'm
to
thinking
say?
of them. I'm thinking of them, and you can read my mind. You know who I'm talking about.
You know who you are.
I'm thinking about.
But you can get along with people like that if you just have a week or two. But for 6 months, forget about it. It'd be a disaster. So we did this Cold Lake thing, and we go up there, and now we're with these Army guys from Canada, and we're out there, and it's cold. It was like we got down to like minus, I think down to like into the -20s, minus almost -30. It got really cold up there.
Cold.
We're like
Right.
north of the Arctic Circle. We can see like the northern lights. It's beautiful, right?
It was amazing, but it was cold. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I remember they gave
Yeah,
us this really of all the equipment, the thing I loved the most were these mucklucks. They gave us these
yeah.
remember they can't like this. It was -30 out, but my feet were toasty warm because we had this awesome pair of a super advanced Arctic footwear that had like these insulating layers in there and like little pads and things. And I was
Yeah.
like, where can I get a pair of these? I want to buy a pair. I was talking to the
Yeah.
instructors, like, I want to take a pair home as a souvenir. And they're like, what are you going to do with these in Houston? I'm like, I'm like, well, I go skiing. Like, how long is the walk from the end of the hill to the hot tub?
Yeah.
You really need this
Yeah.
Arctic footwear for that. So I didn't. Get
They
a
were
pair.
cool though. I think it was more of a fashion statement.
Yeah.
You know, they were very cool. Like, they were like these white things. I remember seeing them in the movie Patton. I think they were
Mhm.
wearing like when they're going through going to wherever they were going to the Battle of the Bulge or something, and
I
they're
mean,
walking through the snow.
I think that's what it was like. What Luke Skywalker was wearing on the ice
Yeah,
planet
yeah.
Hoth. You know.
Yeah, so they
in
were
Star
cool
Wars.
boots. That's what you should have said. I want to look cool, man. I don't care about the warmth. I
Yeah.
want to look cool wearing these things around town.
Yeah, you wear that around Houston, and your feet would just sweat off. Your feet would melt.
But you would look cool.
Yeah,
It'd be a fashion statement.
you would. Yeah, you would look. You would
Yeah,
look cool.
they had some interesting. They had some interesting gear there. I remember finding out about this. I think maybe one or two groups had gone already. This was, again, we did these things early on in our astronaut careers, right?
Mhm.
And Nancy Curry, who was my branch chief, we were assigned to these different branches after you completed your initial training to work technical issues. And Garrett and I were both in the robotics branch together, I think,
That's right.
for a while. Nancy was a great.
Nancy was our boss. Yeah.
Nancy was a great boss for both of us, Garrett. I know she really was very helpful. I know for me, and I know as well for you, she was a great person to have in our corner
Yeah,
in
she was
the
fantastic.
office. And yeah, she was great to work for and good friend. I ended up flying in space with her. And she came up to me. It was right after, they had those Monday morning meetings. And I think they just had a staff meeting or something she came out of because she was a robotics chief and Charlie Precourt was the chief of the office. And she comes up to me. She goes, "Hey, I just kind of volunteered you for something." I'm like, "What might that be?" And she goes, "Cold Lake." I'm going, "Are you kidding me? I'm going to Cold Lake." She goes, "Yeah, I think it'd be great because you're going to go there with Precourt, who is the chief of the office,
no.
right?" Charlie was, and I go,
Yeah.
"Now I know you're nuts. There's no way. I'm not an outdoors person. You grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in New York. We didn't know. It's cold. We go inside. We know how to deal with the cold.
Right.
I'm not going to go out there and live out there and that stuff." And she's like, "No, it'll be great. You'll get to know Charlie and you'll get this training and it's really good visibility for you." I'm like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's going to be terrible." So and she goes, "Oh, and you're leaving like tomorrow." It was like the next day we were leaving. I think what happened is someone had to drop out. I don't know. It was like Steve Robinson sticks in my head. Someone like that had to drop out for some reason.
He was in
And I
our
was
branch.
like, "You
He
gotta
was
be
in our
kidding me."
branch too.
He was on a branch. I guess that's what it says. We want another one of your
Yeah.
branch members to go up there. He probably had something important to do. And like, well, take him. So she thought this was a career opportunity for me. And I remember going. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work out. But actually, it was kind of fun. I think a lot of things that we experience, you just have to say yes to. It's like, I don't know if this is going to be. I wouldn't volunteer for that necessarily, but having been volunteered, it ended up being an interesting experience. And going up there with Charlie Precourt, who was the chief. I didn't really know him very well, but after about, I think what it was like after like 5 minutes or so together with him, I thought the guy was hilarious. He was from Boston, and he was really a funny guy, and we got along really. It was like right away. Because I think what it was, I'm standing next to him, and we were exchanging money in Canada, And as soon as we arrived, right, we landed. I think they flew us up to. We had a lot of stops. It wasn't like you could just fly to Cold Lake.
No,
We went
it's
to,
in the
I
middle
think,
of nowhere.
Winnipeg. I think we
Yeah.
went to Edmonton and then Winnipeg, and then we
There
had
are
to take
no-
a dog sled. It was
And then-
like some crazy thing. There was
A
like no way to
helicopter?
like really get there.
There's a
Helicopter
at
into the
end.
site.
Yeah.
But to get to that Cold Lake Air Force Base, I think we had to take a military plane. But somewhere along the line, they were like, "Okay, this is the last civilized place you're going to be in. Go, if you do whatever you got to do." So I'm going to exchange some money, and Charlie's next to me, and I hand in, I don't know, some money in American. Say it wasn't 20, but it was like $20 or $50. I got $50, and I got like $75 back, right? Because it's Canadian.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, look at this. And I said to the guy, this is like going to the track. You hand the guy some money and you get more back. And Charlie started cracking. He thought this was funny. Like you're laughing. I was like, I like this guy. So Charlie and I became pretty good friends. And we had, it was mainly, he was the only guy that had flown, never mind being the chief of the office. And it was a bunch of my classmates, my sardine astronaut class of 1996 classmates with me and Charlie. And we went on this adventure out there in Cold Lake and got this really great training from Sergeant Colin Norris, who was Colin Norris. He was the lead guy, Sergeant Norris, out of these Canadian Army guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So on our trip, our senior astronaut was Mike Lopez Alegria, Mike LA.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was a little intimidated by him because he was a pretty senior guy. I mean, he wasn't chief of the office like pre-corps, but I knew he was, he had flown a bunch of times. He had done all kinds of stuff. And he also, he was this Mike Lopez Alegria.
It's a fancy name.
It's a fancy name.
I'm thinking about that name. You think that was his real name?
I'll tell you something. So
That's
he
a
makes a
pretty
big deal
fancy
about being born in Madrid and being like this international man of mystery, which he is.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, he is. He speaks every language.
Here's the thing. He grew up in Orange County. He grew up right down the road down here in like Mission Viejo, not Madrid. Okay. And it's like the OC or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember finding out where he grew up, and I'm like, oh man, you're like suburban Southern California. You're no international man of mystery. But
there was some Boston connection too, wasn't there? A Boston connection with him?
I think his mother's family was from Boston, so there's a connection there too. He's a big Red Sox fan, which was problematic. But anyway, we'll get into baseball some other day. But he's our guy, and I'm like a little intimidated. I think we all were. And so like on day 4 or 5 out there in the field, you're out there, you don't change your clothes, you don't take a shower or anything. You're out there surviving for all this time. And after like several days of this, like half a week or so, he started developing a pretty prominent zit, like a pimple, like right on the tip of his nose, a pretty big honking one, right? And we're all like, should we say anything? What do you do, right? So,
it was part of the exercise.
I think it was. So we didn't really. We didn't talk to each other. I was just thinking to myself, like, should I say something? So finally, I'm staring right at this thing. I can't. It's like that Austin Powers with the mole. It's like mole. Right? I'm staring right at this massive zit on this international man of mystery's face. And I finally said, hey, LA, I got to tell you, you got a big zit on your nose.
And we should point out there's really no way for him to know that because there's no mirrors.
No.
There's no bathroom. You're out there in the middle. And the only thing you can't see yourself.
No, unless you felt it. You would never know. You would never know.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, he goes, Reisman, you said what? I was like, yeah, you got this huge zit on your nose. And he goes, wait a minute. And he pulls out like the back of a canteen or something reflective, and he looks down and he feels it. It's this massive thing.
Yeah.
and he goes, he looks right at me, he goes, thank you. Then he turns around to the rest of the astronauts, and he goes, why did none of you have the courage to tell me?
It's part of the test. You got to tell your buddy. Yeah. Why did any of you? Oh, I don't know.
And then that from that moment on, we were like best friends, and we ended up being on a backup crew together. The two of us, LA and I, we lived in Star City, Russia, for years, like training together, having a great time. We had all kinds of adventures, and to this day, we're still really close. I think it's all because I was the only one that had the guts to tell me I had a big zit on.
All right, it could have been T.J. Creamer doing all that stuff with LA. Who was he on the trip with you?
No.
It could have been someone else from your class that could have done it.
Yes.
But I think LA would like this. Mike LA would like this program, Garrett. Remember we went to that baseball game with him? He took us to we went to a Mets game with
Oh,
him, I think. And he got
yes.
he got the tickets and he wanted
Yeah.
the two of us to go. And he said he wanted to sit in between us so he could hear us talk to each other. But he wanted to be, I was like, I'm treating for the tickets, but you each have to sit on either side of me. So I want
And
to hear your
entertain me.
conversation.
You have to entertain
Yeah,
me.
you have to
Yes, the
entertain
whole-
me. That's what we did. So, Mike, you can listen to us all the time now. Just listen
I
to
think
the podcast.
Mike would be a fantastic guest on the
He
show.
would.
When eventually someday we'll have guests on the show, and I think he'd be awesome. So
Yeah, I
we'll
think
keep-
Mike would be
he's
a
also
very
he's
good
he's going to command the very first private space flight to
Yeah.
the space station coming up here in
Yeah.
less than a year from now.
Yeah, we
So
should.
he-
So we got to get him before he leaves, maybe, and maybe after.
Well, you think you think it's risky? Why do we got to get him before?
No. I didn't mean that.
You
Just to see if he's excited. How he's
Are you worried
feeling.
about this?
No, but that's probably another episode. But I'm thinking it's a whole nother episode. But it reminds me of like my when I was my first flight. I was asking my family what they want me to fly for them,
Uh-huh.
and I asked my brother, and I go, "Joe, do you want me to fly anything in space for you?" And he's like, "I don't know, like what?" I go, "I don't know, like like a watch or a piece of jewelry or something." And he goes, "Well, I've got Grandpa's watch. But what if I don't get it back?" I go, "Don't worry. Don't worry about it. I'll give it to you. I'll give it back. I'm not going to steal your watch." And he goes, "No, if I don't get it back." I go, "Well, they're going to give it back to me. No one's going to, a bunch of kleptomaniacs. I'm going to hand it in. They're going to," he goes, No. Like, what happens if you don't come back either?" I go, "Then you have bigger problems. What are you worried about the watch for?" He's like, "Well, what about the watch?"
It was his grandfather's watch, man. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure he valued his relationship with you, but hey, it's his grandfather's watch.
Right.
I
When
mean,
it comes down, it was my grandfather too, so I guess I could have understood.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about Cold Lake.
Yes,
And
we were.
So part of that journey we talked about, we stopped. It was like Winnipeg, Edmonton, whatever those places are. Then we get on some kind of other and then we bust for a while. When we get out to this lake that's very cold. And they did the exercise in the winter, so it was cold there. And they trained us on how to do this stuff for a few days, like how to make a fire out there. And we always, and the tents we had no bottom. There's no floor to the tent. So you slept in the snow and you would freeze to death, apparently. So you always had to have a fire going inside the tent, which meant, and the fire was a stove. At least that's what we had. It wasn't like a raging fire. The thing would catch. So it was a stove that was going for heat. And so you had to have a fire watch. And I can't remember what the intervals were. Maybe, an hour or 2 hours, and you'd wake the next guy up and you're trying to sleep in that, you're trying not to go to sleep in there. And the place stunk because of fires inside and you're freezing. Because even with that fire, it was cold in the snow. And then we had to get up every once in a while to take measurements of the dew point or whatever it was. All these things
had to take like weather. There was just harassment. There was no.
It was a lot of harassment, and like I said, I wasn't necessarily outdoorsman here, and it was so cold. We had these GPS things, but that was like cheating to use a GPS. But it didn't matter anyway because the batteries would go cold. The batteries were so cold. The thing was so cold it wouldn't work. So the batteries, you had to keep the batteries. I remember on the inside, so we would warm them up so they would work. And Lee Marin and I were sent out to do something one day. Like they said, go over here. I remember it was like a Sunday afternoon. It was a nice day. It was freezing, but it was sunny out. And they said, go over here to this thing and get whatever it is and come back. And Lee and I are out there for a while, and we don't know where the hell we are. So we're kind of following. We don't know where we're going. And then we're like, oh, let's go back to it. We find our footsteps again. What we did, we went in circles. And then completed. It's like if we tried to do it, we couldn't. We were going to. So things like that. Things like that kept happening. And Greg Shamatov was with us, who's one of your classmates on this thing. Yeah,
Taz. His call sign Taz.
His nickname was Taz. And he was I think he was an Eagle Scout, and he was a real outdoorsman.
He probably was.
Taz was. And I knew him from college. I know from graduate school. We were at MIT together in grad school. And so we were friends there. And then he was in your class, astronaut class after mine. And this Colin Norris, this Colin Norris was this badass sergeant guy. He was the leader, and he was great telling us all these things. And he comes up to me and he says, "Massimino, come here." And it's about 5, about 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. He goes, at 0200 in the morning, at 2 a.m., you pick one of you pick one of your classmates, one of your crewmates, and you're going to walk across the lake to these coordinates and pick up this stuff. We had to pick up water and food,
Cargo
whatever
or
it is.
something. Yeah.
Get this
Supplies.
stuff at this exact location. You have to get there before this time, and then you're going to walk back across the lake, right? And I say, walk across the lake. And he says, yes. And I go, are you sure that's safe? He goes, what do you mean? I go, I don't want to fall in. And he looks at me and he bangs his foot like bang, bang, bang. And he goes, you do realize you're standing on the lake right now. We're on this frozen lake. And I'm like, so then I'm like, all right, I guess
that thing's been frozen solid since like the Pliocene era. Yeah,
it's been right. It's never been. It's not like a lake you're going to go boating on. It's
it's always
across
ice.
This lake.
Yeah.
It's always ice. He goes, you realize you're standing on it right now.
Yeah.
Like, all right, that's a good point. And I'd say 2 a.m. I go, it has to be 2 a.m. He goes, yes, 2 a.m. And I go, what's it going to look like out there on a lake at 2 a.m? He goes, close your eyes. So I listen. I close my eyes. That's what it's going to look like. So he says, choose somebody. Let me know who it is. Says, you take a minute and tell me who you want to go with. So I picked Shamatov because he's the guy.
Why did you pick Shamatov? Why?
Because Shamatov was his outdoorsman. And I didn't want to get lost. I didn't want to get lost. And if we got attacked by a bear, I wanted him to take care of it. He was the guy.
You should take pre-court because if you get lost, they're going to rescue the chief of the office. Shamatov, who cares?
I wanted to live. Charlie Precourt was from Boston, and he was good for. We went on our other excursions during the day. We could see a little better. We had we were like, that was the fun thing. This was this I was worried about. Whatever. I needed someone who could help me out there in case we encountered some wild animal or something. And so he and we walked across this thing. We pulling sleds over across and everything. And on the way back, it hit me. You said what a beautiful area this was and it was kind of miserable up to that point. My feet had a bit of my feet had gotten wet, and so I had some bit of like frost nip going on, and it was really cold. I remember when they dropped us off in that helicopter. You remember that they helo you into this place, and it was like a Saturday afternoon, or I don't know, something like this, where after a few days of training, we're in this. We got helicoptered in there, and I realized the sun was out. It was the middle of the day, and the sun was out, and I was freezing. And I realized it's not going to get warmer. This is as warm as it is. And I realized I was going to be cold. I was always going to be cold. I was cold the entire time. And then, so Shamatov and I picked this stuff up. Now we picked this stuff up, and as we're coming back, and this was about halfway through the exercise. Shamatov had rigged up a shower for himself. Like I wasn't going to do any shower. I was just like, I just want to live. I'm not going to clean he's like, shower. Like, get out of your mind. It's freezing out here. But I remember coming back with Greg, and like I said, I'd known him for a long time. I said, Greg, just wait, just stop. We stopped right in the middle of the lake. It was this beautiful, clear night. We looked up and we could see all the stars, and it was so quiet. It was just beautiful. And we could see the trees on the outline of the lake, and all we could hear was like each other breathing. And all of a sudden, the whole experience changed right there. And I think that's really the part of this training was not learning how to get along, but also appreciating the opportunities you have. And for me, it happened, after all this misery, the last half of it really was quite fun, I found, because I kind of just embraced it. Well, this is a pretty cool thing.
I look back on all these experiences, no matter how tough it was at the time or how much harassment there was, it does bring back a lot of good memories. And I look back very fondly at all this. But I had a similar experience. So I had to go off and do some reconnaissance. We weren't picking up supplies. We had to get up really early and go in advance of the whole team and scout out a proper place to set camp. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so it was myself and a Russian cosmonaut, Sergei Volkov. Okay. And Sergei would later be my commander on the ISS. So I think it was just coincidence, but we ended up, it was the first time I ever met him, was he flew in straight from Moscow. Actually, he just finished a Russian winter survival, and then they sent him right to Cold Lake. Poor bastard. We did him back to back. So he shows up in Cold Lake, and I meet him for the first time, and now we got to go do this reconnaissance mission. So the two of us set off, and we had to go find this coordinate. It's the first time we actually got to the lake. So we're in a deep wooded area up until now, and we break out. Kind of same thing. We see this big, expanse, frozen lake. And it was like all of a sudden it was actually really pretty. and I had kind of a similar kind of a thing. So we found a great spot to set up camp. And then we're sitting there, and so we radioed in to Mike LA. We said, "Hey, LA, we found a place. Here are the coordinates. We're giving you the green light to bring the rest of the team, and we'll start setting up camp here." And he said, "Okay." So now they're coming. So now we start building the fire. And Sergey taught me, because Sergey knew everything about this. He taught me how to build a huge bonfire by using the lower branches of these fir trees. That were the dead branches are down below, so you just break them off like snapping little twigs, and you get these big dead branches, and they burn great. So we got like tons of those things. We made a fire that you could see from space. Right? We made this huge fire. It was like a pyromaniac's dream. We had this massive fire going, and then we're getting nice and warm and toasty in this beautiful spot. And then Sergey looks at me and he goes, "Garrett, you ever take snow bath?" And I'm like. Like, I don't think so, Sergey. What exactly is snow bath? He goes, "I show you," and boom, he strips down, okay, to nothing but his boots and his socks. So he left his he took his socks off. He's got just his bare feet and his boots, not a stitch of clothing on him. He's standing in front of me in his birthday suit, completely butt naked, and then he takes like 5 steps forward and he plunges like like back into the snow. And he like jumps into the snow and he's rubbing it all over his body. He's rubbing the snow all over his body. He's rubbing it, he's doing that thing. And he comes back to the fire and he looks at me. He goes, "This is good. This is good. Your turn." And I'm like, oh. But I'm like Rocky, with Ivan Drago and was that Rocky 5 or whatever? I'm like, I'm not going to let this Ruski show me up. So I'm like, fine.
No.
I'll show him how tough we are in Jersey. So I strip down. I take off all my clothes. I'm down to just my boots, okay? And I take the 5. I jump into the snow. I'm like, I'm never going to father any children. This is going to kill me, okay? That is a terrible idea. But I get in there and I rub it all. And then I get back by the fire, and the two of us are standing there in our boots and nothing else in front of the fire, feeling pretty refreshed, I got to say. I got to give it to Sergey. It actually worked.
Yeah.
But then the radio crackles. And I hear Colin, right? The Colin guy goes,
Sergeant Norris.
Sergeant Norris. He goes, Recce Team 1, this is Sergeant Norris. I need a sit rep. I need a situation report. Wait, give me a sit rep. And I look at Sergey. We're still standing there butt naked. And I pick up the radio, and I'm like, Sergeant Norris, this is Recce Team 1. Recce Team 1 is butt naked and rolling around in the snow. Recce Team 1 out. and there's just silence on the radio. LA, he said that they were all rolling around laughing. They heard that on the radio, but they didn't. And I found out later that the instructors were watching us the whole time. They were like,
they were
everywhere.
Like, that's right.
So they saw the two of us out there rolling around naked in the snow, and they decided to have a little fun with us. But yeah.
Yeah, they were very sneaky. They were always watching us. I think part of it was to observe us, to see what we were doing, but also I had to make sure nothing would happen to us, because NASA wanted their astronauts back after this whole experience.
The other thing I remember was we asked them like what of this equipment, because the mucklucks, the sleeping bags, they had some really good equipment, and we asked like which of these things can we keep,
Yeah.
And the answer was that only the things that touch your skin. So like I still have a bunch of really good Helly Hansen thermal underwear and like a nice Canadian Army toque, the hat.
Yeah, I got the toque. Yeah.
And I was told that one of the cosmonauts, not Sergey, but one of the previous cosmonauts, said, "Oh, we could keep anything that touches our bare skin." They're like, "Yes." He goes, he offered to drive the snowmobile naked across the lake, okay, all the way naked in minus 30 degrees, if he could keep it. And they said, "No, that's not the deal."
That's pretty funny. Yeah, but I remember. I don't think we had those Helly Hansen things. I think I went on maybe one of the earlier ones of these, and so they didn't have the. I think people had made suggestions. The stuff they had for us, the underwear was like this old long underwear that like my grandfather war as a prisoner of war or something. I had this, it was this terrible stuff. I can't imagine, just like those long johns kind of thing.
Yeah.
We had this picture. My grandfather, now to tell you what I'm thinking at, was a prisoner of war in Italy. He was in the Italian army in World War I, and he got captured. And we have these pictures of him when I was a kid. My grandmother had these pictures that they would send, I guess, with the Geneva Convention. Of my grandfather.
I forget here. In World War I, was Italy, were they good guys or bad guys?
I think they kind of. I really don't know all the facts, and if I start saying it, we're going to get in trouble. But he fought by that point in the war.
Yeah.
By that point in the war, whatever he was on, they were on the side of the Americans, because the story is he was living in America. I found this on when I looked up. I don't know why we're on this, but I was in. I went to Ellis Island. If your family come through Ellis Island?
Yeah, my grandfather, my father's side. Yeah.
So all right, so you can go and you can find your relatives' records. And my grandfather entered the United States twice, once before the war, and then he went to the war, and then he came back a second time. And anyway, I think he was given the choice of either fighting on the American side or the Italian side when he was drafted. And he chose the Italians. Yeah, he chose the Italian side because I think what he said, he thought the food would be better. He's like, I think the Italians got better food. Yeah. So he goes over there, and then he gets captured by the Germans. And my grandmother apparently was a little irritated. Not that he got captured, but he got captured as an Italian, because I think if you're a prisoner of war, an American prisoner of war, you have a lot of benefits the rest of your life. And I don't really know if they had the same thing for the Italian army. Maybe they did. I'm not sure. But my grandma's like, you should have went in with the Americans. We would have got treated better. But anyway, he was this picture. I get this picture of him that they took of him. As a prisoner with these overalls on. That's what I think was left over that we were wearing. It was like that kind of style. Not that we were. And another one. My family comes from a long line of prisoners of war. Just to add to this story, my cousin Joe in the Second World War. My mother's cousin Joe was in World War II, and I was telling him these hardship cases. We're saying, "Oh, this was so tough and everything." And he was in cousin Joe of Brooklyn. He was very. He always had a cigar. And I think at the end of his life, when he got into his 90s, he wasn't allowed to smoke them anymore. He would just put the cigar unlit in his face, right? He just with the cigar, he'd just chew on it. I don't know if that was any better. But I had just come back from Cold Lake from this experience. And he's like, what are you doing in NASA? And I go, I just went on this Cold Lake experience. He goes, really? What was that like? Tell me. I go, it was really, really cold. And we had to go walk a mile to find our food. And we had to tend the fire. And he's looking at me like, he's got the cigar, and he's just like, look, he's not like making fun of me or, even wondrous. He just had this like look. And I was like, there's something going on inside of his head that's a little different here, And I just picked something up, Garrett. And I said, cousin, I go, Joe, you were a prisoner of war during World War II, weren't you? He's like, yeah. He goes, why don't we talk about how hard that was? Tell me about that. We totally changed the topic. Here I am saying, we had to sleep in a. He's like, what, are you crazy? But he's just kind of, he didn't say anything. He was just, like those World War II guys were, just
I had
kind
to
of
get out of
my
warm sleeping bag and
really.
and turn the stove up and then get back into my warm sleeping bag. It was really tough.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And it was for 2 whole weeks,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we didn't, the gear we had, I remember getting pretty cold. And I did get frostbite on my feet. Coming back, it was really strange because my feet weren't feeling very good. But after a while, they got numb. It didn't matter. But when we got back to civilization, I remember going in a shower, like a hot shower, and feeling it on my feet. It like freaked me out. My feet were all messed up. But the Canadians weren't alarmed. Like, that comes back after a while. It might take a couple of years, and it did. I mean, they were normal after about 2 years.
That happens every time we go play hockey. That happens. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, don't worry, it'll come back after a while. It might take a few years, and it took a couple of years, and then it was okay. But that was it. We were out there doing. I remember brushing our teeth was very, very important.
Yes.
Very important to do that. We didn't have to shave, and bathing was optional. Except, I wish I would have known about the thing you did with Sergey. That sounds like a better way than the contraption that Shamatov said. It was like something out of, I don't know, like one of those like Petticoat Junction movies or something. It was like a weird kind of like
the snow bath turned out to be quite pleasurable, actually, and I went on to successfully father 2 children. So I it turned out okay.
And the kids, I know those kids. They're good kids.
Yeah,
It worked out.
I don't think they were too detrimentally affected. So
Yeah. But
Yeah.
these are all these fun experiences. And those Canadian Army guys, man.
there was something else.
Sergeant Norris was something. I remember he kept
Hats
saying,
off.
"Do not." It's big. Don't lose anything. He's do not lose your leather man. As he called the Leatherman. Do not lose your leather man. He goes, Charlie Queen, called Charlie Camarda, who we've referred to in other episodes. Another New Yorker was out there apparently the week before. He called him Charlie Queens. He's from Queens, New York. He goes, Charlie Queens lost his leather man. Do not lose your leather man with his big giant mustache. Do not lose your leather man.
You don't want Colin making an example of you. So
No,
so
and
we
they
should
got
wrap
us
this
out
up,
alive.
man. We should wrap this up because I
done here.
really have to go to the bathroom.
And we're not in Cold Lake. In Cold Lake, that wouldn't be as big of an issue.
I know, but in Cold Lake, I wasn't
here you
drinking
go.
all this.
You have to be civilized here. You got to go in the right place. All right, Garrett. So that's good. Thanks for sharing all those stories, man. I enjoyed
Likewise
hearing about that Cold Lake experience that we both.
I want to hear. Maybe in a future episode, I want to hear more about your family. Your family is sounds incredible. I got to hear some more stories about.
Those will come up naturally. Yeah, I'll keep bringing them up. Those will come. That was Uncle Joe. I'll tell you one more Uncle Joe story. Not Uncle Joe's cousin Joe.
No, save it.
I gotta tell it now. I gotta
go. I gotta
Pee
go.
Your pants. Pee your pants. No, so he's telling me about what he's doing. Joe, what are you up to? Right? Joe, what are you up to? And he goes, oh, I go fishing once in a while. And he's telling me fishing stories. And he goes, I'll never forget. I went fishing with your cousin Robert off at the pier over there in Brooklyn. You're like in East Rockaway or something. I go, what happened? He goes, your cousin came up. He was pulling this thing up. We thought he had a whale. He thought he had a whale. He kept pulling. I go, you know, what a whale. Oh, you must have got a whale here, Robert. We're pulling. I go, what was it? He goes, he caught a gun in a bag. That's what you get when you go fishing off that area in Brooklyn. I go, what'd you do? He goes, oh, we called the police. Anyway, Garrett's got to go. It's time for us to sign off. Thank you for listening. Those of you who made it through.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Garrett,
you for listening.
Get to do what you need to do. I'll meet you back here in next episode.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Right,
Thanks.
We're two funny astronauts. Thanks for listening. Go ahead.
Funny
you can
astronauts.
do it. There we are.
All
Talk to you later. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.